last time we did this show, the Giants had the number 2 overall pick in the draft. And something we talked about last week was that the Raiders could actually beat the Jaguars, and that is exactly what happened.
Yeah.
So the New York Giants now have the number 1 pick in the draft. And Anthony, we'll start with you today. Gut feeling. We're number 1 overall. Who do you think the Giants select with that first pick, and why?
If I had to take a guess right now, I would guess Shedeur Sanders because I think Joe Schoen is going to be back, and I think that's who he likes. Now, if he is fired and they have a new GM in town, then I think it's anybody could be up for grabs. They could trade down. They could take Hunter after signing somebody or take Cam Ward. I think you know my preference. I lean Cam Ward and I lean a new GM, but gut feeling is it's going to be Shedeur Sanders and Joe Schoen.
Chris, what do you think?
We're in complete agreement. As I've said for the last month, I expect Joe Schoen to be back as the GM, whether people of this audience or people of this panel agree or not. It's what I've expected, and I continue to expect it. And knowing what we've seen, the Giants have heavily scouted Colorado. We've seen Brandon Brown at their practices. Obviously, Joe Schoen's been to several of their games. I take it as they're trying to get the Sanders family comfortable with the New York Giants. And it appears to me that that's where I would lean that they would go with the number 1 pick, but it's either going to be him or Cam Ward. I especially if Shane's back, which I think we all agree at this point is the most likely outcome. If Shane's back, I mean, it's pretty obvious the Giants are going to have to go quarterback unless somehow some veteran quarterback that's established becomes available, but I just don't see that happening. So ruling that out as a likely possibility, I think they're going quarterback, and I think Shedeur Sanders is the guy they're going to target in April.
Anthony makes a good point. I do agree. I think that if Joe Schoen's not back, I think it is anybody's guess. I think it's a roll of the dice. You don't know what a new GM's going to do. If they did fire Joe Schoen, I think the job becomes more desirable just because you're going to have carte blanche. You're going to have the number 1 pick. You're going to be able to build around the number 1 pick. That's what makes this job desirable. Other than that, it wouldn't be, because you watch how quickly we're going through GMs and coaches and coordinators and everything else, because this team is a total freaking disaster. But I do think that Joe Schoen is going to be back. Now, the coaching staff, I really don't know. I honestly don't. But I do think Joe Schoen will be back. At this point, I don't really care what they do. I think I'm like you guys. I think a lot of Giants fans are just, it feels like no matter what we do, it's going to be the wrong thing. It's just the way it's been the last 12 years. But it's unfortunate, but that's the way I feel about it. So is it possible, Chris, do you think it's possible that, I know the Giants do a lot of scouting on Shedeur Sanders. They like Shedeur Sanders. Obviously, the Combine's going to have a lot to do with stuff, too. The Underwear Olympics plays a big part in these things. If Cam Ward comes out there and
look at the Jaguars with the pass rusher they drafted a couple of years ago. Nobody thought he'd be going
right, Trayvon Walker, right? So you win the Underwear Olympics, yeah. It's very possible that they go in a different direction. But do you think so? I honestly think this particular offseason, the Giants were really trying to blow smoke up McCarthy. I don't think they were ever interested in McCarthy. I think they wanted somebody else to take him in front of them because they wanted Drake May or Jaden Daniels. Is it possible, Chris, that all this Shedeur Sanders hoopla, well, they have the number 1 pick, so I guess now it really wouldn't matter. But do you think it's possible that they say they want Shedeur Sanders because, the Raiders are really interested and maybe they do want somebody to trade up with them or call about and say, hey, we really want Shedeur Sanders? Is it possible the Giants draft Shedeur and trade him like they did years ago when San Diego at the time drafted Eli and then traded him to Giants? Is that possible?
I mean, anything's possible. Anything's possible, but I don't know if it'll be Shedeur, but I think it's going to be Ward or Shedeur is going to be a Giants quarterback next year. I'd be shocked. I think Joe Schoen has almost forced himself to have to take a quarterback in this year's draft. I don't think that he really has an alternative. There's no way he's going to be able to set. When I try to think about what the GM is going to do or what the owner is going to do, my reasoning why I've thought all along that Schoen was going to be back, thinking from Mara's perspective, is he doesn't want to give off this stigma that the Giants are this organization that is constantly flipping things. They're not showing any patience. Firing Schoen would do that. And I think that he is going to end up firing Dable because he doesn't have the balls to know that he's going to have to deal with the venom from the fan base all of next year if they don't fire Dable. So that's why I've thought all along for the last month, Dable's going to get fired and Joe Schoen's going to stay. whether you agree with that or not, I'm just telling you, thinking from Mara, that's how I feel. What is going to happen? Thinking from the mindset of Joe Schoen, what gives Joe Schoen the longest leash to retain his job? Is drafting a quarterback. That's what a GM ultimately does when they come at a crossroads of what they need to decide to do. In this year's draft, drafting a quarterback more than likely is going to ensure he's going to keep his job for at least 2 more years. So that's what I think he's going to do. I don't think they're trading out. I don't think they're taking Travis Hunter. I think they're going to try to sell if they have the first pick, which we don't know is going to happen. Giants are clearly tanking. It appears that's going to be the case.
Everybody's hurt.
Have the first pick. I think Joe Schoen is going to try to sell this quarterback as the guy. And I think he's going to stay at 1, and he's going to take the quarterback that he prefers. I don't think he's going to get cute there. It's either going to be Sanders or Ward. I'm leaning it'll be Sanders. So it's possible, but I don't think they'll trade out.
Anthony, you think they try to get cute and they're doing all this hoopla for Shedeur Sanders with somebody to trade up and get Shedeur Sanders so the Giants can trade back and maybe get Cameron Ward, depending on who's second. If Jacksonville was second, they're not taking a quarterback. So is it possible that if Jacksonville was second, the Giants say, trade up or whatever? Actually, that wouldn't make any sense.
No, I was going to say, what's the incentive for the
It wouldn't make any sense for them to do that. But say the Raiders are third and Jacksonville second. Is it possible that they're doing all this to try to move? You think they could move out of the number 1 spot?
I think they could, but I don't think they will, and I don't think that's why they're doing it. My take on their extreme level of scouting for Shedeur Sanders is that they're scouting Sanders and Deion. They're trying to figure out if this is going to be a perfect marriage between the Sanders family and the New York Giants, because it's very much a family aspect with Shedeur and Deion. A lot of people view them as like a package deal. Like if you're drafting one, you're drafting both, because Deion is heavily involved in Shedeur and his off the field decision making, and even stuff that he does on the field. He's involved with that too. And obviously we've heard all the stories, and Deion has even said himself that he'll step in. If he doesn't like where somebody's getting drafted, he'll try and Eli Manning the situation. We've all heard those stories, rumors, and reports, and even seen Deion say things along those lines himself. So what I think that the Giants are doing is building a rapport with Deion Sanders so that if they hold the number 1 overall pick and they have the opportunity to take Shedeur, and if that is the guy that they like, Deion's not going to step in and say no to them. I think that's what this was. It was just relationship building. Obviously, on top of that, it was scouting. They're trying to figure out whether or not they believe he's a franchise quarterback. But I can't imagine that right now in December, they're already sold on that. They probably don't already know that he's a franchise quarterback. There's a long process. The Underwear Olympics, like you said, Bad Dog, that's a big part of it. It's not because they're running around in their underwear. The quarterbacks don't do anything. They don't run the 40. Some of them don't even throw. Last year, Jaden Daniels didn't even throw. Most of them didn't. But what's really important is those combine interviews. That's what's important for the quarterbacks. And that's when the Giants are going to be able to determine a few more things. How does Shedeur Sanders process this coverage versus that coverage? Can he call this check at the line of scrimmage? Can he relay this information from the headset? Those are the things that I think need to be ironed out in February, March, and into April. But for now, I think what the Giants were doing, they're trying to get a makeup of who the player is on the field from the outside looking in. They'll get the inside looking out when they get to those combine interviews and get to pick the football part of his mind. But also in the meantime, I think they're trying to build a relationship with the Deion Sanders and with the family so that if they want to take him, Deion's all on board with it and he doesn't have an incentive to say no.
Even more of a reason why I don't think they'll fire Schoen, because they've built up that rapport for the last 2 or 3 months. But yeah, I agree with you. I think that has a lot to do with it.